Yo, what is going on, guys? Flashverse here, and welcome back to another video on Arrow. Now, just in case for those who aren't aware why I'm doing an Arrow video, it's just because recently I've been rewatching the show and I came up with this video idea to do where I take my top 5 favorite episodes of Arrow from each season and I basically rank them for a video. So today's video will pretty much be the third video of the series, and I'll be ranking my top 5 favorite episodes of Arrow Season 3. If you guys want to check out my other videos of the series, I will link them in the description down below. So far, I've only done the very same thing that I'm doing right now for Arrow Season 1 and Arrow Season 2. And I did also say once I finish Arrow, I will do it for The Flash as well, or I will try to do it for The Flash if I have time. Now, for this series, I will only be doing it for Arrow Season 1, 2, 3, 5, and 8, as they're the most favorable seasons of Arrow and they're the best seasons of Arrow, and they're the ones that most of the fan base is interested in, whereas Arrow Season 6, 7, and 4, they aren't really good. Season 4 especially, Season 4 is awful, whereas Season 6 and 7, they're just okay. However, next week's one will be very interesting, as I'll be going over the top 5 worst episodes of Arrow Season 4. So be sure to stick for that. You wouldn't want to miss that. Trust me when I say that. But Arrow Season 3. Now, Arrow Season 3 is referred to as the downfall of Arrow, and you do really see that at some points in this season. This season is so inconsistent. Like, you'd have some good episodes, but then you'd have more bad episodes, and there are good episodes. So it fluctuates a lot. Now, what I can say though is that this is my 4th time watching Arrow Season 3, and I actually ended up liking it a lot more than before, although there are some quite bad moments as well, especially with one character, and you guys will probably see me mentioning it in this video. But there are some really underrated things within this season which I really ended up liking than my previous other times that I've rewatched this season. But before I go over anything, however, you guys don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you are aware of more Arrowverse content coming your way. Okay, so let's go over this list, starting with number 5.
I don't need saving. I'm gonna break Roy out of prison.
Now, this episode, Arrow Season 3, episode 19, is really good. It's a great episode. Is one of the episodes where I began to appreciate a lot more. Like, this is one of the ones where I mentioned that it's very underrated, as this episode does have some pretty good moments. Roy's prison storyline was very emotional and great as well. The way they handled Roy getting out of prison by faking his death, I think it was really well planned, and him leaving Team Arrow, that was very emotional because he was just such a great character. I wasn't okay with him leaving because I really liked Roy. He was a great character, but I do understand that it was Colton Haynes' choice to leave the show. We also had that Ray Palmer storyline as well, which was very cool, and having Oliver just control the Atom suit and having him fight for Ray, it was really great. That's one of the moments I really liked as well. And also Oliver's motivational speech for Ray as well, I really liked that. But the thing that really elevates this episode for me was that ending when Ra's al Ghul kills Thea to force Oliver into joining the League of Assassins and becoming Al Sahim, as well as the next Ra's al Ghul. So overall, I will give this episode an 8.5 out of 10.
Is up against Oliver Queen is the Arrow.
What are you going to do?
It's over.
Now, this episode, Arrow Season 3, episode 17, titled Suicidal Tendencies, was great. I do have a problem with the death of Deadshot, however, that's pretty much my only issue with that, but I do understand why they did that. It wasn't their choice. Warner Brothers demanded them to get rid of the character because they were using the character for the Suicide Squad movie. But the Suicide Squad storyline for this episode was a really good storyline. I really liked it. The way that Deadshot just sacrificed himself, it was very emotional and I really liked it. I really liked Deadshot's redemption in this episode and how he saved Diggle. I really liked that. And Oliver and Ray do have a storyline of their own as well. with Ray being quite annoying in terms of him finding out that Oliver Queen was the Arrow. And we also did have this short fight scene between Ray and Oliver. It wasn't a great fight scene. I wish it could have been a lot longer, but it was still okay. This is when Ray joins Team Arrow, if you want to say, and I will give this episode an 8.6 out of 10.
Shoot to kill.
Now, this episode, Arrow Season 3, Episode 18, titled Public Enemy, leads right after Episode 17, where Ra's al Ghul frames the Arrow into him being back to killing people. And so we have the storyline where the whole SCPD is just after the vigilantes. And we get to this scene where we're in the rooftop and Oliver goes to confront the League of Assassins. And Ra's al Ghul says, you either join me or you either rot in prison. And then we had this bunch of cops just circulating these three vigilantes, that obviously being Roy, Oliver and Laurel, and just the whole storyline with the cops chasing after Team Arrow around Star City. It was really enjoyable. We had some great scenes along that as well, especially when all three of them just dive off the building. I really enjoyed that. Now, there were a couple of bad scenes in this episode, especially with Donna Smoke, who is the worst character in the Arrowverse, and I will get more in detail with her for my Season 4 video. We then had the ending scene, which was great, where Oliver turns himself into the SCPD, and while he's being escorted into prison, we then have someone else dressed as the Arrow jumping down and removing his hood, and we see that Roy claims himself to being the Arrow, the man under the hood all along, which obviously lets Oliver free and makes Roy being the one arrested, since he basically revealed himself into being the Arrow, which was pretty cool as well. But I really enjoyed the police chasing Team Arrow stuff, so I'm not gonna let the Donna Smoke scenes ruin this episode for me. With that being said, I'll give this episode an 8.8 out of 10.
Who would win, me or you?
When I'm fighting you, it's literally like you're standing still.
Now, this episode was part 2 of the Flash vs. Green Arrow crossover. This was titled Brave and the Bold. And in this episode, we obviously have Team Flash going to Star City to help Oliver with his Captain Boomerang issue. The scenes between Barry and Oliver, when Barry witnesses Oliver torturing people, it was really fun to see, as these two characters literally operate in two different ways, and seeing that was just really cool. We get to see how Flash operates and how Oliver operates. It was a really fun dynamic to see between these two characters. Barry and Oliver, they just have great scenes together, and one of the things I truly miss in the Arrowverse is the friendship between Oliver and Barry, and this episode is one of the first that we get to see this friendship develop, and I think it was handled really well. How Barry gives this motivational speech at the end where Oliver can indeed inspire people as well, I thought that was great. The Captain Boomerang and Green Arrow fight scene, it was really cool. We obviously had the Flash and him trying to defuse the bombs as well with the other Team Arrow members. I just thought that was all handled pretty well. With that being said, I'll give this episode a 9 out of 10.
You've taken your last life.
You've lived your last day.
Now, the mid-season finale for Arrow Season 3, Arrow Season 3 Episode 9, titled The Climb, was an incredibly good episode. Now, although the other episodes in this list have just been pretty good in terms of the score that I gave them, this episode, without a doubt, is by far the best episode of the season. It's just so intense, so climatic, and it's just so good. This episode is also the highest rated episode of the show, alongside the Season 5 finale, which I'll get to in my Season 5 video. And I think this episode really deserves the score that IMDb gave them, and I do agree with the result that they gave them as well. I will give that for this ranking as well. So over here, we obviously find out that Malcolm Merlyn set Thea up into killing Sarah, and Oliver would obviously do everything to protect his family, so he takes the blame and challenges Ra's al Ghul to a trial by combat, which basically allows Malcolm Merlyn to be set free from the League of Assassins target list. The fight scene between Ra's al Ghul is so good. It's just It perfectly shows how insanely skilled Ra's al Ghul is compared to Oliver, but in the same time, the fact that Oliver is able to withstand this incredibly powerful opponent and properly face off him in a one-on-one, it just shows that he's just such a great fighter in the same time as well. The fact that we just see one of the best fighters ever in the DC universe face off Oliver, it just shows how highly skilled both of those characters are. Ra's al Ghul literally mops the floor with Oliver, which I really like. It was just amazing, and the biggest WTF moment was when Ra's al Ghul literally kills Oliver and throws him off the cliff. Although we knew Oliver wasn't truly going to die, it was just a huge shock value. It was just such a crazy moment to see, but this episode just has such great moments, and I loved this episode, and it's by far the best episode of Arrow Season 3. And with that being said, I will give this episode a huge jump of a 9.7 out of 10. But yeah guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe. Tell me in the comment section down below what you guys think about my rankings, and also be sure to tell me your top 5s in the comment section down below. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.